Welcome back to the Football Fitness Federation podcast. This is episode 236. I'm delighted to be welcomed on the podcast today, Tom Owens. Tom, how are we?
Ben, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I'm doing good, and yeah, I am looking forward to the conversation. Not sure where it's going to go, but let's do it.
No, it's great to have you on, mate. I've just said before we start recording, I love getting people on like yourself because I feel like you can bring a whole different perspective to things. Because obviously, anyone that doesn't know Tom's the founder of Tom Owens UK, doing some amazing work, which I'm sure you'll touch on in a second. But more on the technical side, on the football side. So it's obviously something that we work with coaches a lot of the time. So it'd be great to delve into your brain. But Tom, give us a little bit of background, mate, on yourself, but then also the business.
Yeah, so I played for Preston North End from 12 years of age to 18. Got released, and then from there went to the USA. So spent 5 years in Cleveland, Ohio. Went on a soccer scholarship there. Then stayed to pursue my master's degree. So then I went to Illinois from there. And then, the whole time, really, the number one goal was me to be a professional footballer. That was what I was chasing. That's what the dream was. And even still, when I went to America, even though I was studying, it was still the dream to be a professional footballer. I was still chasing that. I thought that was still alive for me. And then at 25, it was a crossroads where I could either stay in America and start building me, because I did a little bit of coaching in me. There was a position called the graduate position in America, where it was a blend of coaching plus studying, where I could get my master's whilst coaching. So that was the start of my coaching journey, really, when I was 23, and really enjoyed it. I mean, I always sort of took up leadership positions in all the teams and groups that I played for, whether it be Preston or even the university that I played for. So I always really enjoyed leadership. I always really gravitated towards leadership positions. So, and obviously that's usually similar traits to a coach. So I always knew that coaching was going to be something that would light me up. Not to the extent that it does light me up today. I didn't anticipate that or everything else that's happened really coaching wise. So at 25, I decided to come home because I'd been away from home for a while. And so I returned home. And then when I returned home, I thought that I'd walk into different jobs with my master's degree. And I thought I was the big shot with all my degrees from America. And then I realized that it didn't really transfer over. So couldn't get a job anywhere. And ended up, after a few months I was playing semi-pro football, so still trying to be a professional footy player. And then I ended up in a factory working night shift like 3-4 times a week, and hated my life. And then from there, my older brother was encouraging me to start a coaching, because when I was in America, I noticed that when I was on campus, the American football, the baseball, the lacrosse, the basketball, they would all do the team training like what would happen in football, but they were all super, super big into individual training. And it was the first time that I was like sort of on campus looking around thinking like, why doesn't this happen for football? And so then I started doing some one-on-one sessions just with the university lads who I was the assistant coach for the university. So I started doing some private stuff for the university. And just for the boys, I said, listen, any centre forwards who want to come out and do some extra work after training. So just started messing around with my own little bits and bobs of one-on-one sessions while I was there. And didn't really make anything of it. But then when I came home, my older brother, because obviously the position I was in, I didn't have a job. I was sleeping on the floor in my mum's house. I was 25 years of age, still trying to chase professional football. And my older brother kept saying to me that he thinks that, I'd do a great job of being doing the one-on-one training. And I think there's a market for it. And at that time, I had no confidence, no money, no proof that it would work in England, because nobody had ever, that I knew of, had ever done it in the way that I, was planning on doing it. So I was just very limited in me thinking, and I had a lot of fear, no confidence. And I kept on saying to my older brother, I was like, no one will pay for it. Because I had this idea that in England, and it's probably still partly true, all the parents want to think that they know everything, so that they're not going to pay me. They're not going to pay me to train their kid when they think that they could just do it in the garden. But obviously that was a limiting belief that has turned out, 100% couldn't be any further from the truth. So long story short, I started me business at the back of a church in Liverpool, just by my local house where I was living with my mum. And you know, slowly 8 years later, we're now, we train hundreds of players every month. We've got a couple of Premier League clients that we train. I've got 4 full-time coaches, a couple of part-time coaches, a few full-time members of the team to help us with the operation at Owens UK. And yeah, doing everything from pitch work to confidence and mindset programs to helping coaches build a similar business to mine. So that's like, but that's a bit of a 3-4 minute. That's probably longer than 3-4 minutes there actually. But that's a bit of a summary of what's been happening in my world for the last 8 to 9 years.
No, brilliant. And I would encourage anyone listening, go and check out the work that Tom and the team do, because it's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. You see a number of different kids and, like you say, professional players getting the work in away from the clubs, wherever they're at, high quality. And the other thing, Tom, that I've got to praise you on, it's got to come down from the top, is how infectious and not only knowledgeable, but sort of infectious and energetic the coaches are. And that seems to run right through the team, just from me looking in on social media.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, it's something that's important to us. You know, we believe that someone once said to me that no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And that stuck with me that for a while, that quote. No one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And so I've sort of built my business around that, really, because I do believe in that in my heart, that, you know, no, and I think there's some evidence of that too with Jurgen Klopp and Pep Guardiola. Because even though, you know, they're both, I don't know any of them personally, but from an outside looking in, you see that they care, you know, personally. You see how infectious they are with their energy, with their intensity, with the, you know, the constantly touching the players, hugging, pats on the backs, high fives. And so you know that if they're doing it, and they're two people at the top of the game. And so it's clear to see that there's something in that, because Klopp's doing it, Guardiola's doing it, and they've been at the top of the coaching world for the last, you know, 5, 6, 7 years. So yeah, we try to build our philosophy around that no one cares how much knowledge we've got until we can convince our clients that we care about them on a deep level, on and off the pitch.
Yeah, brilliant. You touched on before about players. Obviously, in the States, it is the trend that players will go out and do their work in all different sports, and obviously bringing that into football on a technical side. It's something we speak about a lot on the physical side as well. And it's getting more and more prominent now that players, especially in off seasons or gaps in the season, they're going out to private coaches, S&C coaches, sports scientists to do work. Why do you think players seek that individual work?
They're not getting it. This is probably first thing. I know they're not getting it. And again, it probably the degree to what they're not getting it probably changes to club. Like probably some clubs probably spend a little bit more time and energy and attention on it, and then so, you know, but some clubs, I know for a fact that they don't. I mean, we've got players who come and see us during the season, because they don't get it. I think what happens a lot of times is, and this is just me, you know, I haven't been inside one of those clubs at first team level, so I'm only really regurgitating information that I speak to from, you know, the boys behind me or who I've worked with, and then among a few other lads. But I think they try and wrap them up to protect them so that they don't. I think there's a lot on the line, right? At the highest level, at least, there's a lot on the line. There's you know, winning's super important. And because the stakes are so high, I think they try and wrap up the players to protect the players, to make sure that they don't push it too far, or they avoid injury. And there's obviously a place for that, because, you know, if the player gets injured, it's not good. Nobody wins. The club doesn't win. The player doesn't win. Nobody wants the player to be injured. But I do think that there is, you know, the players that I work with, at least, they all seem to, there's got a common trend in the community, in the way they communicate to me. And the communication is, Tom, I want to do more. I think I can do more. I think, like, what a lot of them think that, like, a lot of them feel like when they were younger, they got really coached, like, on a technical detail, and they really, you know, I believe quantity equals quality. So, you know, the more you do something, the better at it that you get. And that happens a lot when you're in the earlier phases. But all of our, you know, for some reason, when you get to the professional level, and I don't know, because I have not been at that level for a player. And I also, you know, my only experience at a professional level is coaching the professional players that I work with. But I haven't been in that environment. But I think that they start moving away from quantity equals quality, and they start wrapping them up because they just want them to get on the pitch to win the games of a weekend or during the week. But there's players have still got all this energy inside, and they still want to improve technically with something as silly as like the weak foot or dribbling or, you know, catching the ball on a half volley or receiving skills. And they're all the things that we hammer on the pitch. And so for those players who do feel like they need to scratch that itch, because, you know, what the players are really concerned about is they're concerned that if they didn't find me, that they would get to the end of the career and be like, you know what, I could have been so much better, but I just got to this professional level and just settled for, this is who I am now. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, it's almost like the professional contract means this is who I am. I am this type of player, and this is just who I am. And then the evolution of the player sometimes can be lost. So I think we just live in a world where the players, and I don't think we will live in this world the way it is now, though. I think the clubs are going to have to be forced to look at it. But I think we live in a world where players want to evolve and want to grow and want to still improve. But I think clubs, by the sounds of it, are trying to get players inside and get them to put their feet up. But players want to keep on growing and keep on getting better. So they're the players who are coming to seek out our training and some of our work.
I think it's that whole debate around, you mentioned like the development phase, going through academies, getting to that first team, and then first team is about performance, isn't it? But I think you're so right with that, because I know some of the players that I've seen, some of the players you're working with, early 20s, maybe even teenagers still. There's a long way to go in the career, isn't there? You just mentioned that the player can change and develop. There's a long way to go.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and it's you know, the game again, it never ends. Well, like once you can't win at that game, right? Like you don't ever win at improving. It's just constant. You're in that game forever. You can win it. You can win a 90-minute football match. At the end of 90 minutes, there's a loser, there's a winner, and there's a result at the end. But you can't win it at the gym. The key with the gym is to continue playing the game all the time, to stay in the game. You can't win it getting better. The key is stay in the game, keep getting better all the time. And so I think the players who have that craving are the ones who seek out the extra work from yourself and, you know, probably a lot of people who are listening right now, and then also my work too.
Yeah. So is it fair to take from that then, you feel like the biggest reason they make that decision is they're not getting the quantity of work in terms they feel like they can do more, but also the fact that you've got that individual in front of you. So, you know, the way that they play, you can look at everything from an individual perspective without looking at the other 20 odd other players that are in that squad.
Yeah, because I think there's three, the way I see it in training, there's three parts. There's like the team, then there's the units within the team, and then there's the individuals within the team. But I feel like the more you work down those units, the less and less time and attention people get. I think clubs do a great job of team work. Are we all on the same page? Are we, you know, team meetings? What's the plan of action? Who are we? What are we all about? I think they do a great job of that by the outside looking in. Units, I feel like they do a decent job. I feel like midfielders go together, defenders go together. I think there's some of that going on, 100%. But then the individual work is where it really peels off, and that's why I think there's not much attention going on the individual for whatever reason. I don't know whether there's a mindset of like, oh, they're a professional now and they're older now, so they should be able to do A, B, and C on their own. I don't know whether there's a bit of that like, you know, but obviously managers are obviously under pressure to win games. So have they got the resources or the time and energy to actually stay out on the pitch with an individual for 45 minutes, 60 minutes and pour everything into that individual? Like, I can do that.
Yeah.
But that doesn't make me better than the coaches who are in these clubs. It's just purely, I can do it because I've just got the resources to do it. It's what my business, my whole business is designed around it. So it doesn't make me better than the other coach who can't do it. It's just like there's only everyone's only got 24 hours in a day. So it's like maybe the coaches haven't got the time or the resources, or the clubs haven't invested the time or the resources in giving each individual that individual work. I don't know what the answer is, but obviously it's work. It's almost like, you know, it's worked for me. So it's not like I'm complaining, because obviously the players who aren't getting it, they come and see me, which I love. But I do think that the clubs are going to be forced to look at it. I already know that there's clubs who are already having them conversations just through a couple of people who I know who are inside of academies and inside of professional environments, I already know that the conversation around individual work, it's happening, and it's been happening for the last couple of years. So I think we'll start to see in the next, my prediction is that in the next few years, we'll start to see clubs really, there's definitely clubs already out there, by the way, right now, who are already going hard in this individual work. And I just think we'll see more and more of it come out, and it'll be more public too. That's my prediction.
Yeah, I think you've seen that in some jobs that have come out as well, haven't you? Clubs, like actual roles have been developed where it is focused on the individual. Right. So yeah, no, I completely agree, mate. Tom, one area I thought would be really interesting, something we spoke about a lot in terms of how the game has evolved in terms of speed, the amount of deceleration work that players are doing now, the intensity of these games, especially at the top level with some of the players that you're working at. How was that informed or changed your approach with players, or has it?
No, not really. No, I think like if I was doing what I'm doing now 20 years ago, I don't think, I mean, obviously, like the more I learn and read and study, like, that all is constantly being influenced by, I'm constant about influencing me philosophy on how I'm coaching someone. But I think for me, my stuff's super personal. And I think, I think humans, 20 years ago, we're dealing with humans, or 20 years from now, I'm still going to be dealing with human beings. And I think human beings just want that attention. They want that love, that focus. And because my stuff is really about the basics of football, it's not about, even if the game changed, I don't think how can receiving the ball in multiple different ways. I don't know how many different ways you could possibly receive a football, no matter how much the game got faster or slower or quicker or started to change. My work is obviously not very tactical. So ours is specific to someone's position, but it's very technical. And probably more so mental, to be honest with you, as well, in terms of just empowering each individual that through repetition, and you're building confidence through repetition and giving them the tools. Because I look at what we do as golf. Like when you go and play, I don't play golf, by the way. Do you play golf?
I do. Well, I'll try.
Yeah, I couldn't play golf to save my life. I do. Some people say it'll come with age, so maybe like if we do a podcast in a few years, maybe I'll start by then. But I don't play golf. But what I know about golf is that you've got lots of clubs, and if you haven't, like if you went to play 18 holes, but you're at half of the clubs, I imagine it'd be a difficult time because the ball's going to land in some certain situations and circumstances, but you haven't got the club to solve the problem. So I look at football the exact same. That's where my job, our job, is to get each individual and to make sure that when they cross the white line to play the game of football, they've got all the tools to solve all the problems, or as many problems as possible. And, and I look at the best players in the world. So obviously over the last decade or so, Cristiano Ronaldo being at the top of the game. And I look at him and I think, why is he the best? And the place that I go to is he's got in his prime, in his peak, he had all the tools. So it doesn't matter what situation or circumstance he found himself in. He had the clubs to pull out the right club to solve the right problem. So he says to his teammates, play it to me in the air, I'll go get it. Play it to me in behind, I'll go get it. Play it to me left, me right, I'll go get it. Bounce it to me, I'll deal with it. Like you can't catch him out. There's nothing you can catch him out with. He's ready for it all, and credit to him because he's trained himself with all the tools that are necessary to play the game and execute at a high level. And so when players come to me, it's an analysis of, okay, what tools do you have right now, and what situations are you finding yourself in, often subject to your position, and then let's get the tools to solve that problem, and then let's hammer them home. And there's an opportunity in my space where there's no rush. You're coming out, you've got your own time designated slot, and for 60 minutes, it's a full deep dive into your position, all of the scenarios that could possibly come your way. And then, once we've built the habits of doing that the right way, then it's adding the tempo and adding the speed. So then come match day, because in the game, you're not thinking about all that stuff. You know what I mean? Like, in the game, you're not thinking about all the details of where's your standing foot and where's your connection with the ball and how am I from the ball when I'm making contact with it. Like these are things that you don't think about. But go in training is a great opportunity to start thinking about some of those things and to be conscious of them, so that because the game is quite unconscious, you just sort of unconsciously play the game of football based upon your habits. And so to answer your question, really, the demands of the game and how it changes and like doesn't really influence the work that we do. Because again, our job is just to, what position do you play? What are the possible scenarios that you could be placed in? And then what tools do you need to execute them scenarios at a high level and solve all them problems? And that's really the work that we do. So I have a hard time thinking that would change much. The only times it would change, I guess, if a player comes to us and is like, listen, I'm playing fullback, and the manager wants me to do A, B, and C, which is probably quite unique to any usual fullback position. And that's probably the only time, really. But it's really the player's responsibility to feed back that information to us, and because we can make the sessions look however we need to. So yeah, I'm just trying to answer the question live, really. But I just think the only way it would be influenced is if the player's getting certain demands from the coach or from the game, and the player just comes to us with them demands. And obviously, I watch the videos of all the clients too. So as I'm watching the videos, I'm seeing what the game's demanding of them by watching the analysis and see the problems they're solving at a high level, and then the stuff where they're getting stuck and where they're having some challenges to solve certain problems. So that's really my thought process. I don't even know if I answered the question.
No, you have 100%. You have 100%. I think just on that as well, when you've got a player that comes to you, they're obviously going to have strengths, which we refer to them as like the superpowers in terms of physical, and then they're going to have areas that they need to develop and work on. What's the ratio for you? Does this depend player to player on where you spend your time? Would it be a case of, right, let's make that super strength even stronger and do a little bit of work on the weakness, or how does that split?
Yeah, probably the latter. I mean, whenever the players are doing our programs, it's a conversation first. So before we're training, it's a conversation of like, okay, where are you up to? What would you like to unfold in the next 12 months? Here's what I've seen of you, and here's the areas that I think you're amazing, that I think that you could do even better. And here's the areas where I think that, it's maybe low-hanging fruit, where it actually wouldn't require that much effort and that much work. But I think if you added it into your game, I think you could get 10 times more productive. So it's more of a conversation with the player, really, about like, what are they passionate about? What are they seeing? How are they feeling? Because no matter how many video analysis I do, I don't know how they're feeling on that pitch. I can try and put myself in their shoes as best as possible, but my program needs to factor in how do they feel, and I never know that. So that's why I need to ask the right questions and navigate the right conversations to draw it out of them. How are you feeling on the pitch? Like when you're hitting that ball in that position, how do you feel? Do you feel stable? Do you feel confident? Do you feel like you could hit like 7 out of 10? Like, what are your ratios? Like, where are you up to? So that, and then at the end of that conversation, there's clarity on, okay, so it's fair to say that we're gonna, as part of, we're gonna be together for the next 6 weeks. As part of our program, it's fair to say that this percentage of time is going to be dedicated towards the areas that you're doing great right now, but also these things, and then trying to see if we can prioritize, because there's I get to see the players in 3-week period, really. So you can get better at anything, but you just can't get better at everything in 3 weeks. Yeah. 3-4 weeks. So it's the hardest part of my job is trying to prioritize, because a lot of times when I sit down with the player, they tell me they want to improve on everything. And I'm just like, yeah, I get it. But like, what's a priority? Like, where, and then trying to prioritize the things that, again, the places really where it goes to is, what could you add to your game that wouldn't really require any crazy new skills or loads more effort, but it's sort of like low-hanging fruit. It's right there for you if you just sent a little bit of energy towards it, and if you just, if you've done a couple of reps in there and we spoke about it and see how you felt. So that they're the things that, like, I know that we can immediately touch right away. They make a lot of sense, so they go straight to the top of the priority list. And then some of the other things would be like, listen, you got to accept the fact that I understand that you want to improve at this. Right now, I'll be honest with you, like, I don't see loads of that in your game. This is not a 3-week thing. This isn't something that we're going to be able to accomplish in the next 3-4 weeks. But if you're willing to make the commitments and you want to come and see us longer than that, then we can look at how that might look in the next 6 months. But and then and that's hard, because it's an honest conversation. Player might think that they're here, but I've seen that they're there, and then it's a conversation to be like, well, so that it's them initial conversations are really important to gauge what's a priority in the next 3 weeks, and how to program someone.
it seems like it's great to hear that the programs are so not player led in terms of they just design the whole thing, but there's a lot of communication obviously going on with the player, isn't there? Where you're then creating something from that, and it's something we've touched on a lot in terms of the physical side as well. It's really important, isn't it? That side.
Yeah, 100%. And again, our expertise is not the strength and conditioning side, and we always encourage our players to go somewhere else for that. Even though the only really place we'll touch on is the footwork. We really value starting all our sessions with footwork, and it was something that I picked up while I was in America. I seen that. I was always fascinated watching how heavy and big the NBA and the American football players were, and how good the footwork was. I always remember, like, sometimes walking around campus, and sometimes I would just go and watch the American football people train. I'd just sit there with a cup of tea, and I was watching these people. They were like super heavy, super tall, super rapid and clean with the footwork, and I was like, how that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But so that was always fascinating to me, that. And I always remember when I went to America in my first week, I went to watch the Cleveland Cavaliers play, and I was in like the nosebleed seats right at the top. And my first week while I was in Cleveland, LeBron had just left, so I didn't get to see LeBron James. But one of my friends who I went with, his uncle had courtside seats, and his uncle was stuck in traffic, so couldn't make the first quarter. So I went down to the courtside seats for the second quarter, and I was right there on the floor, and I was watching these people, like 6'8", 6'9", but the footwork was unreal. And ever since that, I've always valued the footwork. And then because I've been doing it so long now too, a lot of people come out to me, Ben, and they'll say, "Tom, I want to improve my shooting or my finishing or my passing." I'm like, okay, great. Then I'll get them out on the footwork and the sloppy. And really what I end up finding is, like, it's not so much your connection of the ball with your pass that's the problem. You can't sort your feet out to pass the ball the right way.
Yeah.
So it's the organization of the footwork, because that's what precedes the connection of the ball. So from me training so many people, from like a 6-year-old who's just started to the Premier League boys, and watching people so closely now, it's like I see it time and time again, the correlation between someone's ability to organize their feet and someone's cleanliness of receiving the ball and setting the feet for a clean strike. And there's always a correlation between the best strikers of the ball and the best receivers of the ball, and the people who have got the cleanest footwork through the ladders, the hurdles, and however else we're working the footwork that day. So that's really the extent that I will go to from a strength and conditioning perspective.
No, that's great. That's great. I want to give a little bit of context around this next question, because we speak a lot about speed away from the pitch, but also on the pitch as well. And we spoke a lot about players being on sort of a spectrum, a continuum of, on one end, we need to work on the technical side of developing their sprinting. So breaking it down in terms of how they actually move, and then sliding right to the other end is like the game insight, being on the pitch and being able to apply that in a game scenario. So I want to focus on that end with you, and just put the question out there in terms of, we hear a lot of players, or I was going to say parents, but we'll go with coaches, talking about players not moving as well or not being as quick as what they need to be. And you can look at the technical side and like, well, technically they're quite good movers, but they just don't seem to have that insight and do it on the pitch. Have you seen that? And where do you feel, in terms of your technical knowledge, where do you feel that breaks down to?
I don't really know the answer to that question, to be honest. I feel like I would definitely wouldn't want to answer something and pretend that when it comes to someone being technically sound through the mechanics of running, but not being able to apply it on the pitch. Is that what the question is?
Yeah, and I don't know whether it ties into what you've just been talking around footwork, because for me, and tell me if I'm wrong, but from what I took from your last answer, it was that them having more efficient footwork will maybe create a little bit more time, which allows them to, if it's then going onto a shot or a pass, they're able to execute that because they've developed more time from the initial footwork. So I don't know whether that then transfers a bit more onto the speed side as well.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, I was also talking about, footwork can come across in terms of just getting in the right position. I mean, even sometimes someone might have time and it's actually got nothing to do with time, but just getting into the right spot, like with your footwork, so that your base is solid, your stand leg's solid, and you can see, and again, I'm going a bit technical with my stuff now, but a lot of people are striking the ball, but they can't see the whole ball. That's something that we speak about when we talk about connecting with the ball. And
Yeah.
I know it might not be super relevant for your audience who are in strength and conditioning area, but so for us, if someone's got the footwork right, they're in the right spot where you can see all the ball, all the surfaces. When you're making a connection with the football, you want to be able to see all the surfaces of the ball, and not only just see visually, but you also want to be in a position where you can use all of it too. But if the ball's slightly ahead of you or even slightly under you, you can't see all the surfaces and you can't access it all with your foot. So you might make a decent connection, but your ratios aren't gonna, because it's all what I do is a ratio game. So it's not, I don't come out to try and get someone to crack a ball to swipe 2 out of 10. I'm more interested in, you could be, and we see it all the time on Match of the Day when we're watching the Premier League games. You could be in the wrong position with the worst footwork ever, and you can connect the ball quite well.
Yeah.
But they're like 1, 2, 3 out of 10, but no one gets to a high level with them types of ratios. So it's about consistent trying to build up your ratio. So for us, what really helps us from a footwork perspective is that if people have got an ability to organize their feet, whether it be off balance or whether it be when they're on the move, whether they're in full speed, whether they're standing still and then they're moving to the left or right and they're having to react quick to organize the feet. If someone has got a good ability to do that, then what then happens is then they're in the right spot then to see the ball whatever it is they're doing, whether it be crossing or striking or shooting or passing or distributing, whatever it might be, because they can see all the ball then. So that's where the footwork stuff really, we see the return on investment on the footwork stuff, because everyone's connection with the ball really makes a lot of progress once they start organizing the footwork. But it all starts with footwork. So that's why people always say to me, Tom, I need to improve my shooting. I'm like, well, maybe you need to improve your footwork.
Yeah.
But obviously people don't, like a football player doesn't sit in there and go, I've missed a bunch of chances and it's me footwork. Like no one thinks about that. People just think it's me shot or it's me decision. And it might be that, by the way. It's never just one thing. It's not like as if someone sorts the footwork out, everything else is sorted, because connection with the ball is another conversation too. Decision making is also another conversation. So there is other contributing variables that all needs to come together for you to increase your ratios of striking the ball, but not really. But yeah, so I don't think, to answer your question though, for speed and how that applies, that's not really something that I don't feel like we would be monitoring from our end.
No, and I appreciate that. And I think what this shows is that the conversations with someone like yourself on the technical side is really important for F&C coaches, because we can understand that side of things. But already I've taken loads from the actual technical side. So when S&C coaches, sports science, are putting drills on, these are some of the factors that you're talking about that can be applied to those drills. We don't have to understand the full thing, but we can speak with people, someone like yourself, and take into mind, right, this is what Tom wants at the end of it. This is what he's looking for. So how can we manipulate it to try and get what we want and also what he wants?
Yeah, because no one, the people that you work with, and even the people who I work with too, but it's probably closer to me and a little bit further away for you. People don't want to squat or do deadlifts or do single leg. Like people don't want to do that stuff. People know that the reason people can do it is because of the result that they think they're going to get. So I think my work is closer to the result that they want, because it's closer to the football pitch, which is assuming that you're working with football players anyway. But football players are in the gym, but they want to be, the reason they're in the gym is because of what they want to do on the pitch. They want the gym to go to the pitch. Yeah. And then they come and see me, which we're on the pitch, so it's a little bit closer to the outcome that they want, but not quite, because I'm still stopping them and talking about the details. So I think, yeah, I do agree with you there, because I think that if you could be whatever, let's say you are, and again, I'm saying squatting, but that's just simple exercise, I guess. But let's say you are squatting with someone or going through some details or some strength and conditioning programming with someone, your ability to be able to paint the picture in their mind as to what this has got to do with you connecting with the football, which is closer to the actual outcome, which is what they want, which is, I want to be better on the pitch, whether it be with the ball, without the ball. So yeah, I think connecting them two would probably promote buy-in from the clients, wouldn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Because they can think this work I'm doing here is going to be reflected upon when I step over that white line.
Again, it's something we've touched on. You've got to think that you're going to get a question why we're doing this by a player or a coach, and if you've not got an answer to it, you probably shouldn't be doing it, because it has to have that transfer 100%. No, I appreciate that, Tom. I think that's really, really good information for people to hear. We're getting closer now towards sort of off-season and then crossing over into pre-season. So I was interested, and I don't know whether you've already touched on this in terms of developing the toolbox, and I know you used the golf analogy before, but in terms of your focus in an off-season period where we're removing the load of matches, would your focus change for players, or what would be some of the main priorities that you're going to take them for a certain period, whether that's a 4, 6, whatever they've got, a block, and then you're sending them back into pre-season? What would be your focus with them then, or does it just not change? Yeah,
so the focus for me is like initially, like when I get the player, usually they've just been on a holiday or a bunch of holidays because the season's finished. They've gone on a holiday.
And tanned and
yeah, and they come back and and generally, you know, some of the ones who maybe haven't had a great season prior or have had a great season but want to kick on, and maybe the ones who maybe got a little bit more desire to make sure that the next season's good. Generally speaking, some of them have usually like done a couple of runs to stay on top of it. So then by the time I get them, they always say to me, like, you know, I've been running and I've been keeping up with me running, so I feel good. And then like we'll literally be 20 minutes into a drill, but when the ball comes out, it's a fucking different world.
Yeah.
So and that's you can't replicate the game of football in the gym no matter how much you try. Once that round thing starts flying at you and your legs are a little bit heavy, it's a completely different world. So initially there's like no expectations, and I'm not, you know, I'm really not evaluating or not judging anyone for like the first week. And that's just a case of, you know, let's break a sweat. Let's get the ball out. Let's get you familiar with your coordination with the ball again. Because even though you stay away from the ball for so long, you pick it up super quick, but you do lose it a little bit. And those messages don't travel as quick from brain to foot when you're trying to receive the ball or connecting with it. And that's where, like, you know, for me, I'm watching them, and the hardest, one of the biggest challenges for me is because there's a decent amount, how do I say this? Everyone's got an ego, right?
Yeah.
So the players at the highest level have got an ego too, which serves them well when they're competitive and they want to win, they want to be the best. Doesn't really serve them well when they're trying to develop habits and they've just come back off a holiday and they haven't seen a football for 3 weeks, and then they can't hit a barn door. And so my biggest challenge is to make them understand that, like, that is okay for like this week. I understand you got high standards and all that, but if you've got high standards, come back next week, and then if you're about to go back to pre-season and you're still doing what you're doing now, which I know that you won't, because it never ever happens. But because I've done so many pre-seasons now with professionals, I know that the first few days is purely just a feeling in process, feeling the ball, feeling training again, feeling a little bit of structure again. So I'm not overloading players in the first bit. It's just come out, break a sweat, smile as many smiles as I can, even though the ego doesn't allow them to smile that much if they're missing or if they're not doing something good. So trying to get as much smiles in as possible. Particularly like that's easy if it's a client that's been with us for a while, but if it's a new client, trying to take them on that journey. But then, you know, once you start getting into like this, you know, even working with someone generally for like 3 weeks, when you start getting into the second week, you start, you know, picking up the temperature a little bit. So we'll start. We won't really go into any running per se. They'll do their own running if they need to or feel like they need to after the sessions, but they won't do it with me. It'll all be ball work. But then just the intensity of the drills, how long I'll keep the players in the practices for, how many reps we'll be doing, all that stuff starts to increase in the second week. And it's hard I'm just going off a 3 week here, but like, some people come and see us for like 4 weeks. Some people will come and see us and for like 3 sessions. It's like, so it's here, there and everywhere really. But then the last week is where I'll start adding in some running based, where like they're actually trying to execute the things that we've been working on, but they'll be doing little bits of cardio in between each rep. So it might be, you know, like Anthony's behind, for example. So like whether it be he's on the wing and he's doing a couple of strikes, so he goes down the wing, crosses it in, cuts it, and then, you know, we get the ball number 2 comes into him, into the box, cuts inside, left foot finish. Then he's facing someone up, shifting it, striking it. From there, he'll be somewhere where he's got to get to. So there'll be some sort of run which will build up, whether it be, but it's all specific runs. So we might be where we assume that the last shot he just hit, goalkeeper caught it. No matter where it went, we just assume the goalie's caught it or it's been blocked or whatever. And now someone else, the opponents have got the ball, he's got to react off that. So he's straight over to closing the ball down, then the ball's gone somewhere else. He's straight over to close that ball down. Then it's a walk back to the start, and then we go straight back in. So really, really turning up the temperature in the end. And that's when, like, you know, the players go to a little bit of a dark place there, but that's when the sessions are really difficult. But they end up, you know, all the players end up going back to pre-season, and I'm always checking in with them in the first few weeks when they're back, and they just feel like, even just mentally, they feel like stimulated.
Yeah.
They feel ready, alert mentally, because for the last 3 weeks, they've been used to a ball getting fired at them. And because I try and train just a slight threshold above the match, if possible. So if the game demands this, I try and, particularly in the back half of the second week and the first half of the last week, before they start resting, before they go back in. But I try and train just a little bit of a threshold above, so that when they do actually go and train with the teams, or when they go and play the matches, because they've been training a slight threshold ahead, the game, I want, one of my goals for my clients is I want the game to be easy because you train with us. That's the ultimate philosophy, is the match is easier because you train here. So you're used to this level of alertness. Like in our sessions, especially when the sessions start getting into the intense sessions, the level of like stimulation that is required for you to be able to cope in a practice is like through the roof. And the game doesn't require that level of stimulation every second all the time. So the players end up stepping onto the pitch and they're almost expecting the ball to come a little bit quicker than it actually does. So it almost feels like everything's moving slow for them, but it's almost like they're in the Matrix, you know?
Yeah.
That's how I want our players to feel when they play.
Man, that's brilliant. Tom, I knew this would be a great conversation. I could keep talking about this all day, but I'm just a little bit conscious of time. And I want to, if you've got time, are you okay to take these last few questions?
Yeah, I'm good.
We always finish the podcast with the same sort of questions. The first of which, and it's been really interesting hearing from you on these, is who are some of the biggest influences on your career so far?
Coaching career.
Yeah.
Just me life.
Yeah, coaching career. Okay,
coaching career. I'd probably say when I was in America. Probably. Because there was a coach that I had who was my university coach. He's from Birmingham, lives out in the US, and his name was Michael McBride. And he was the one who, like, when I look at me, I think if you asked anyone the question of like who's the best coach you've ever had, I think it always ends up being the person who you feel like's really, really cared about you. Yeah. And like he had this blend where like 1 minute he's like a millimeter from your face screaming at you because you didn't do something right or the standards weren't high. And then the next minute he's walking around the campus having a cup of tea asking how your family is. And I was always like, does he like me or hate me or what's the... But I would have ran through walls for him, you know? Like I would have ran through brick walls for that guy, because I knew that he really put time into me. He was really present with me. He cared about what I thought, and he cared about me as a person. And there's been multiple coaches like that while I was in America. So him, plus like I was always fascinated with the like, do you know who Urban Meyer is, or Nick Saban, or Bill Belichick?
Nick Saban and Bill Belichick, yeah.
Yeah. So I was always fascinated. There was a show called Hard Knocks.
Yeah.
Ever heard of the show? Have you watched Hard Knocks?
Yeah.
When I was in America, this is before I was even like coaching. I was always fascinated with them shows. When I was in my dorm rooms, I was always watching Hard Knocks on YouTube. So I think from then, I felt like the American way of coaching, because in American football, particularly college, they were getting a lot of like underprivileged but talented athletes who maybe come from like the ghetto or come from a rough area or a rough upbringing. So the coaches needed to be more than just coaches. They needed to be like almost like life mentors. In some cases, dad, like a father figure.
Yeah.
And then also the American football coach. And the way that these people, the best who used to do it, Urban Meyer used to coach at Ohio State. The way that he used to do it, the way he would blend all those things, instead of being a father figure for these people, plus a mentor, plus a coach, that always really just pulled me. There was something pulled me towards that sort of philosophy. So I think now, like, I think that our brand is a little bit American. I think there's a little bit of an American feel to what we do. And if you'd ever get the chance to come to Liverpool, you'd have to come to one of our sites. But if you stepped on one of our sites and all of our coaches are coaching at the same time on a half of a football pitch, you would feel like all that enthusiasm and all that energy. And I think there's something American about that. So I'd probably say in the US.
Yeah, brilliant. The other one is, have you watched Last Chance U?
Last Chance U, yeah.
That's the other one, isn't it? Obviously, younger players, but they take exactly that same role as what you just spoke about.
Yeah. Who's the Brown? What's his name? Jason Brown, is it? Do you see
Jason
him?
Brown, yeah.
He's a nutter, wasn't he?
Absolute nutter. Yeah, absolute nutter.
But also some stuff he said was good though too.
Yeah. And he did exactly what you just said. He was a father figure for a lot of them, wasn't he?
Yeah, and he'd tell them straight.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I didn't always agree with the way he did it always. Like he was really like straight down the barrel, wasn't he?
Yeah.
There's something about that though. There's something old school, because I know that his philosophy, and I've followed him since Last Chance U, because I liked watching his series. And I know that he operates from a philosophy that the world is weak and we are soft nowadays. And young kids are entitled. And I don't agree with all of it, but it's not all false either.
No. There's somewhere in between, isn't there, where he's right? Yeah.
Yeah, there is some truth. And there is some truth that I resonate with that. So, yeah, I really enjoyed watching Last Chance U. It was cool.
Yeah, brilliant. What would you say your biggest strength is as a coach, Tom?
Biggest strength as a coach? Probably something to do with my last answer, really. So, like, for us, we always talk about three things in a coaching session for a coach to almost like boxes to tick. The first one is to be the player's friend. The second one is to be the player's accountability partner. And the third one is to be the player's motivator. The accountability partner is more a place of like telling the truth, but do it with love. And the first one being the friend is like, ask them, show an interest in the human being, not just the football player. And then the motivator is, have you got the ability to get someone to go to a dark place and get an extra second out of someone, that someone go a little bit quicker or do something a little bit sharper, or really go and apply your coaching skills. So I think, I would like to, it's hard to answer that question about myself, isn't it? But I think I would like to think that I do a decent job of putting those three things together in my own way. I think if someone trained me, maybe I have to ask my clients, but if someone trained me, I think that they would say that Tom's my friend, Tom's my accountability partner, and Tom can also get the best out of me. So I think probably putting those three things together and blending them up in my own way is probably my strength.
Brilliant. If you were able to speak to Tom back in America, what would be the big bit of career advice you'd give him?
Stop playing FIFA. I was quite good at FIFA though. What would I give him advice? I mean, now that I know what I know, I believe everything's mindset, and I didn't have the right mindset when I was trying to be a professional footballer. But I think everything's mindset. There's a saying that I love, which is, if you don't have skill set without the mindset will leave you upset. And I think no matter how many skills you've got, unless you can apply yourself with the right attitude to everything that's going to happen, unless you can develop a healthy relationship with mistakes and failure and things going wrong, then I think it's difficult to really reach your potential. And I didn't have a great relationship back then with things not going my way, or things not going, making mistakes, or I tried out to so many pro clubs and didn't get a contract, and I probably got more and more deflated each time. But that was that was a reflection upon my mindset, that I was operating out of a place of fear of, imagine if I don't get a pro contract, as opposed to an abundant mindset to think that there's a million clubs on the planet and I'm just not going to stop until I get a pro contract. But I didn't have that mindset.
Yeah.
So and the mindset's such a broad conversation. I could talk all day about it, but I think everything's mindset, and I didn't have the right mindset back in the day for me to really achieve me playing goals. So anyone who's listening to this, who maybe who is playing, it would be pick up. If you don't make it as a professional football player, or that's probably not fair. So maybe the best comment is, if you don't become the best player that you could be, that is your fault, no one else's. And I used to think that it was Preston's fault for releasing me. I used to blame Darren Ferguson, because he was the one who came in and brought in all the Man United. Sir Alex Ferguson's son. He came into Preston 2 weeks before I was getting a decision made on me, brought in Danny Welbeck, Matty James, all Man United players. And I used to think that was the reason I didn't get a pro. So I used to really, because oftentimes when a person who doesn't like taking responsibility really tries super hard to find somewhere to deflect the responsibility. And I deflected a lot of the reasons why I wasn't a professional to sources and things that are outside of me, when the reality was it was because of me and the work that I hadn't done.
Mm-hmm.
So probably around mindsets, pick up some books, get a mentor, and don't get distracted. Probably
I love that you've covered loads of topics in this without even knowing that we've actually spoke about really recently as well. So I knew there'd be loads of value in this, Tom. I really appreciate you coming on and doing it. Just finish us up, mate. Just give us the socials for what you're doing so people can go and check it out.
Yeah, Tom Owens UK, pretty much wherever you are, we are. Tom Owens UK on every platform. Do quite, probably majority of our stuff on Instagram, but YouTube videos, and trying to share as much as possible, really. And if you're ever in Liverpool, come and train with us. If we can ever help we've got a confidence and mindset business that I built in COVID, in lockdown, which is growing super quick. So if we can ever help from a confidence and a mindset perspective, give us a shout. We'd love to help, love to learn about you. And yeah, other than that, Ben, I really do appreciate you having me on. I hope it was valuable for your audience. I'm sure we'll find out anyway when they listen. So, but yeah, appreciate the invite. Thanks so much.
No, I appreciate you, mate. I know you're very busy, so thanks a lot for freeing up the time coming on.
Of course. Appreciate it, Ben.